Hey, what's up, everyone? So before we get into today's piece, I want to just pause here and let you know about another project I'm working on. Some of you may have seen it on LinkedIn. It's a newsletter called The Free Toaster. We're at the intersection of marketing, lending, and fintech. Really broadly around news, around things that are going on, fundraisers, job boards, deep dives, and then other channels that you might be investing in, like paid social, paid search, direct mail, etc. All right. So today, there was a story that caught my attention. I originally found it on Alex Hormozy's podcast. It's called The Game. I really recommend the podcast. So he had this story on episode 793, and he talked about a leader at New Balance, the chief marketing officer who turned around a 15-year decline. I'm going to walk you through it and share the story and leave you with some of the lessons I took away from it. So here's the TLDR on the whole thing. For 15 years, New Balance watched its revenues decline. Customers saw its sneakers as dad shoes, safe, comfortable, but uncool. Traditional direct response marketing wasn't reversing the trend. In April 2020, a new CMO, Chris Davis, arrived with a bold idea to flip the marketing mix from a 70% reliance on direct responses to a brand-led approach. It was a big gamble that took 19 months to pay off, but when it did, New Balance emerged as a revitalized global brand. So before we get into that story, just a bit of context. I want to talk about the Quant mindset. So I spend most of my time around direct marketers at banks, and the vibe here is really clear. So they want to spend $1 and generate $1.10, $1.50, or more in tangible returns, measurable, returns they can show the CFO and say, look, we're winning here. We're investing our money in a responsible way. So the game is buy media, scale winners, kill losers, rinse and repeat. A lot of math here. It's tailor-made for quants. A question I rarely get from this crowd is, how much of our budget should we spend on brand marketing? It's a question I rarely contemplate. I spent over a decade in the financial services arena as a direct marketer, either buying media or selling media. And rarely the question of brand marketing popped in my head. So for quants, they generally leave this question on brand spend up to the CEO or the CMO. For the quants, the brand team is handed a pile of money to spend on TV or magazine or whatever, and it may or may not produce any tangible results. So what many think and few say is that brand marketers are cost centers. The company's required to do this brand marketing thing because the powers that be said so. But it's not something that actually delivers ROI for the business. So why does brand marketing terrify the quants? So there's two reasons. One, as they think about brand marketing benefits, one is that they're hard to measure. Two, that they materially lag spend. That makes quants queasy. So they dismiss brand marketing as worthless. I used to think this way too. That was until I started writing on LinkedIn around 2022. And found that I unintentionally could create an inbound sales pipeline on pretty much anything I wrote about. I wrote about a variety of topics, but the general pattern was if I hit a particular area deeply enough and for long enough, I would start to network with people who were interested in that subject area. And then the aha for me is like, okay, well, when I started writing, I didn't have a product or service underneath it to sell, but the wheel started turning in my brain and realized, okay, this is a way I could probably build a consulting practice. So now as a owner of a consulting practice, by the way, we help fintech lenders grow on affiliate channels. That's what we focused exclusively on. I rely almost exclusively on brand marketing, plus my existing network. So this is my LinkedIn posts, this podcast, the newsletter I talked about earlier, to help potential clients find me and trust me. It's not easily measurable in the short term, but it works. So my story about my business that you've never heard of probably won't change your mind about brand marketing. But I think New Balance's story, how this new CMO came in and turned around a 15-year revenue decline by materially reducing direct marketing spend might. So let's look at this decline. Everyone assumed New Balance, the dad shoe, quote unquote, was finished. So I can't really imagine being in the CMO seat at the time. I was in a head of marketing role where I saw not a 15-year, but a 15-month revenue decline. And look, the atmosphere was grim. So all but the most optimistic on the squad figured it was either game over for the business or that prospects were limited. The idea of turning things around with brand marketing, though, was just a joke, honestly. Like, no, there was not a single individual that would even hint at the fact that running a TV commercial or investing in anything other than a click that might generate immediate revenue was worth spending time on. So just a little backdrop, my experience with these kinds of declines. Zero appetite for brand marketing. New Balance did they did what many companies do when they're in a jam like this. In April 2020, they found a new CMO. This was Chris Davis. And yeah, you might guess where I'm going with this. Chris wanted to turn the company around with brand marketing. So he approached the CEO and he asked, look, are you cool if we just swing for the fences here? The CEO obviously was open to new ideas. That's why he put Chris in. So I think he probably reluctantly agreed, just out of lack of better ideas. And Chris wanted to revamp how the public viewed New Balance. Like, in his mind, being a quote-unquote dad shoe was a death sentence that even the best performance marketers in the world couldn't fix. So Chris goes onto this radical brand bet, and he did what many CMOs and CEOs don't have the stomach for. He flipped the marketing mix. So they used to be spending 70% on direct response marketing, the remaining 30% on brand advertising. And he went to the opposite. So 70% on brand, 30% on direct response. And you direct response marketers might imagine what is going to happen here. And that's exactly what happened. Revenue got worse. So he flipped the mix. What was driving response and sales, the direct response marketing came down. Direct sales came down. And then this brand thing came on, which was hard to manage, etc. But let's take a step back and just look at what he did. In the face of 15 years of declining revenues and a mandate from the CEO to turn it around, he proposed scaling down, directly asking people to buy shoes. Instead, he wanted to scale up the public's opinion about New Balance's vibe, what they believe in, ultimately their opinion on New Balance shoes. So in this setup, any quant that proposed scaling back performance channels, again, 15-year decline, mandate to turn things around. So you proposed scaling the things back that directly could be shown to work in favor of woo-woo, brand TV commercials, influencer deals. Like, you'd just be laughed out of the room in most of the situations I've observed across my career. But this was Chris, okay? New Balance hired him for a reason. He had a big vision for what the brand could mean to people and what it could do for its revenues. Chris tapped into streetwear culture. He convinced cool, high-profile people to wear the shoes, talk about the shoes, and to make the brand and the shoes convey like a much bigger message and idea. There's an article I'll put here in the show notes. It's a 3,800-word article. It's about a 20-minute read, but it gets into the gory details of exactly what he did. So how he partnered with people, how it played out. Pretty cool read for folks interested in how brand marketing works, the nuts and bolts. Some pretty cool anecdotes there in the article. But the stunning thing is that 18 months after this pivot, revenue kept sliding. So I can just imagine the pressure. The quants are over there snickering. Executives have eyes on monthly reports. There's no payoff. Things are actually getting worse. And Chris somehow stayed the course, driven by his vision that brand perception, not short-term conversions, would ultimately turn this thing around. As this played out, Chris had his finger on the pulse, though. He spoke to people directly, influencers, customers, interviews on the streets. He found enough evidence that things were turning to keep the New Balance organization committed to the bet. It worked big time. Revenues have been up and to the right ever since. And you can hear this from Alex Hormozy's point of view on that podcast I mentioned. It's called The Game, episode 793, if you want to check that out. So lessons here for quants. One is brand marketing benefits take time, in this case a lot of time, to materialize. So Chris didn't flip New Balance's spend from 70% direct response to 70% brand because he had some penchant for making TV commercials or talking to influencers. Like, he did it because he knew it would work and it would sell shoes. He also knew it would take time to have an impact. So New Balance saw 18 months of decline after he got to work, before anything turned around. So Chris knew he had to place the right bets, stay patient, and buy enough time before the data proved him right internally. So definitely a lot of experience here playing into that. I don't think just any brand leader can come in and do something like that. But pretty cool to hear how it played out for New Balance. The second lesson, brand marketing amplifies direct response marketing. This is something Hormozy hit on his podcast, and it really hit with me. I think it's true. I think I see it in my business, my consulting business. So let me talk you through the observation and then how I see it personally. So observation, brand marketing is performance marketing in disguise because it improves click-through rates through higher awareness and recognition, conversion rates through stronger intent, pricing power, customers pay a premium for brands they already trust, loyalty, repeat purchases, and resistance to competitors. And all this is directly measurable if you create the right experience. And where my mind goes on experimentation would be, you're a national company, you're not willing to invest in brand marketing across, let's say, the entire U.S. So you pick a region, you pick a city, you pick an MSA, you pick a place where we can really go all in on brand. And it's well executed, it's thoughtful, it's well done. But your budgets are now bound and capped because of the scale of the audience you're reaching. And then you start looking at click-through rates, conversion rates, pricing power, loyalty. You start to see whether or not the brand marketing you're doing in that specific region is causing your funnel to look different to maybe comparable regions where the populations are otherwise the same but aren't exposed to the brand marketing you're doing. So that would be a way to do that. I'm guessing there's a heck of a lot of challenges in actually executing that. And the hard part, back to New Balance's story, is like having the patience to see it all the way through. So you've really given people and the data enough time to bake and let it go through. But like, again, back to my business here for a second, I had to see a massive difference from people that contact me inbound. My inbounds tend to be people who've seen my content. They've gotten a sense for how I operate. Maybe they've even seen videos of me, this podcast. It's really, again, measurability is hard. I don't know what they've been exposed to. But when they come in inbound, there's just a general vibe of trust and a willingness to do business together that I just candidly feels quite different when I contact somebody cold who's never heard of me, who doesn't know what I do, who hasn't been exposed to my quote-unquote brand marketing. So I feel that and see it very directly. So I think Hormozy hit the nail on the head there. The next point he hits, and he frames it as the nailing the give to ask ratio. And I really like how he positions this, because it gets you out of the jargon of like, is it brand marketing? Is it direct mail? Is it direct response marketing? Is it performance? As marketers, we're really good at coming up with jargon that makes us sound maybe more important or cooler or whatever. But it's really about giving or asking if you really just step back. And I think of brand marketing now as giving. That can be through education, entertainment, inspiration. Could be some other means. Performance marketing is asking, right? This is, I run a ad on Facebook and I pitch my thing and I hope you click. That's an ask. Studies like Bennett and Fields, the long and short of it, it's a classic piece. They advise a balanced mix, 60% brand spend, 40% direct, if you're going to maximize long-term returns on growing a brand. Alex Hormozy, by way of his businesses, he recommends slightly higher. Give 70%, give 25% ask, so he's at a 3-to-1 ratio. In fact, I discovered, I forget where I saw this, probably somewhere online, TV stations still by this 3-to-1 give to ask ratio when determining how much show content versus commercials or ad content to be running on air. If you look at that, you'll see it, the 3-to-1 ratio is pretty much spot on. Okay. Fourth lesson here, brand marketing is an art form. So a textbook CMO could have come in and noticed that New Balance had a brand perception problem. She could have known that 70-30 mix weighted toward performance needed to be flipped. But few could have done what Chris did and create a vision for the new brand, and execute it brilliantly with a team of external influencers. Brand marketing feels more like art than science to me. It's a territory I rarely explore with clients given the performance nature of my work in affiliate. Okay, that's the bulk of the story. I want to leave with a few closing thoughts. So again, I'll come back to the majority, actually 100% of my time right now is with direct response marketers. I don't have a brand practice. And in that environment, it's easy to convince yourself that performance media is the only thing that drives revenue because it's so directly connected to revenue. So it is easy to tell yourself stories around, brand's just hanging out in the background, doesn't do anything. When you start peeling the onion and really thinking about it, and you look at stories like this one, I think you start to see that maybe that isn't 100% true. And if you really peel the onion, I think you'll find that brand marketing is perhaps even more important. I started to see that with my consulting business. I don't do any direct marketing at all. It's only brand marketing. But this story helped me see something even more fundamental. And I think the fundamental thing is brand marketing is performance marketing. It fundamentally is. You don't do any marketing unless you think it's going to give you an ROI. At least not for-profit businesses don't. But the thing is, it looks and feels a little different. So it works on a long time lag. It's difficult to measure. It isn't easily taught or learned because the number of possible strategies is vast. So again, back to the point of art, not science. And without a solid brand foundation, even the best performance campaigns will underperform. So I think that leaves thoughtful marketers 3 big opportunities. One is to be more patient than your competitors. The world operates on a quarterly OKR type of framework. So you can build a better marketing program by extending your time horizon. 2 is to be more curious than your competitors. So I talked earlier about testing and ways you can figure out the impact of brand media on performance. The truth is I don't see a lot of performance marketers, at least in lending, this may be different across other categories, who just aren't that curious about the impact of brand media on their performance dollars. So if you're more curious and you design the right experiments, it could be your hidden advantage. And then just acknowledging the value of art within your program. Knowing that you need to give on a 3-to-1 ratio or a 2-to-1 ratio, whatever you end up concluding is the right mix for you, is not enough. So you have to collaborate with a team of brand professionals that understand how to deliver those gives. And the how could make the difference between a business that flatlines or one that grows for the next 50 years. So the thing I'll leave you with is this story when I really thought about, okay, how do I re-look at brand marketing? Like what is it that this story taught me? This is my synthesis here. So I think no amount of copy testing, conversion rate optimization, bid optimization, or any other levers in the performance marketing world, we're going to convince cool people to buy dad shoes in increasing volumes year over year. I don't believe that to be true. But the right amount of brand marketing gives, quote unquote, done in just the right way over a long enough period of time just might. All right. So that was the piece for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Today's podcast was based on an article I wrote on the free toaster. So check it out. If you want to share the story, that might be the easiest way to share it. So I'll close by sharing what I focus on today. I run a business called New Market Growth. We're an agency that focuses on helping fintech lenders generate explosive growth on affiliate marketing channels like Credit Karma, Experian Marketplace, LendingTree, and many others. If you or someone you know needs help with growth on affiliates, I think we would be thrilled to meet you, talk to you, and see if there's a way we can help. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you soon.